Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today we will dive into the absolute emotional earthquake that just shattered Deacon, Taylor, and Sheila's world. From the tragic car crash to Sheila's shocking amnesia and Deacon's heart-wrenching decision to leave Taylor. I genuinely think we are witnessing some of the most profound, devastatingly beautiful television that The Bold and the Beautiful has ever produced. I am sitting here, still completely reeling from the sheer emotional weight of these recent episodes, and I just have to break down exactly why this storyline is working so incredibly well for me. I know there are always going to be loud voices in the fandom who complain about pacing, or who want their favorite couples to just be happy without any obstacles. But I genuinely think we're missing the point if we don't recognize the absolute narrative genius of what the writers are doing right now with Deacon Sharp, Taylor Hayes, and Sheila Carter. This is not just a love triangle, this is a Greek tragedy playing out in the heart of Los Angeles, and I am entirely captivated by every single frame of it. I want to start by talking about that absolutely gut-wrenching scene at Il Giardino, where the divorce papers were finally signed. I feel so incredibly moved by the way that specific moment was directed and acted. The way I see it, the writers could have easily made this a screaming match. They could have had Sheila throwing things and Deacon yelling, but instead, they gave us this suffocating heavy silence that felt so much more realistic and painful. When Sheila picked up that pen, I loved the way the lighting in the restaurant seemed to cast this long dark shadow across her face. It wasn't just a woman signing a legal document, it was a woman signing away her final tether to humanity. I believe that Deacon, in that moment, thought he was doing the right thing. He was being honest. He was choosing Taylor. But the look in Sheila's eyes, that hollow, terrified, frantic look, was the exact moment I realized this was going to end in absolute disaster. I think the choice to have them sign the papers at the restaurant, the very place they built their life together, was a brilliant stroke of cruelty by the writers. It made me feel the full weight of what was being destroyed. And then, we watched Sheila's immediate descent. I have to say, I feel like this is the best they've written Sheila Carter in years. We are so used to seeing Sheila as this invincible, calculating mastermind who is always 3 steps ahead, plotting her next revenge. But here we saw a woman completely broken. When she fell into that state of sheer panic and reached for the alcohol to drown her sorrow, my heart actually ached for her, which is wild considering everything she has done. I think the visual of her drinking, her hands trembling, the sheer desperation radiating off of her was a masterclass in acting. In my opinion, the writers are showing us that Sheila's love for Deacon was the only thing keeping the monster at bay. Without him, she didn't just lose a husband, she lost her anchor to sanity. When she stumbled out into the street, completely intoxicated, I was literally on the edge of my seat. I know a lot of people are saying that a drunk driving storyline is a standard soap trope, but I actually think the execution here is exactly what's needed, because I feel like it perfectly mirrors Sheila's internal state, out of control, reckless, and hurtling toward destruction. The description of that horrific traffic accident, the way the car was completely deformed and mangled into an unrecognizable heap of metal, is so deeply symbolic of Sheila's life right now. She is shattered. I interpreted that crash not just as a physical accident, but as the violent, explosive end of the Sheila Carter we thought we knew. The sheer brutality of the accident was necessary to reset the board, and I am entirely here for the bold choices the production team is making. But what truly elevates this storyline to a masterpiece, in my personal opinion, is the devastating contrast the writers created by cutting directly from that horrific, mangled car crash to Deacon and Taylor enjoying their first real moments of romantic freedom. I cannot stop thinking about the juxtaposition of those scenes. There they were, Deacon and Taylor, finally out in the open, breathing the sigh of relief, believing that the nightmare was over. The warmth of the lighting in their scene, the soft smiles, the way Deacon looked at Taylor like she was his entire future was so beautiful, and yet, as a viewer, I felt this sickening dread in the pit of my stomach because I knew what was coming. I think the writer's choice to let them have that brief shining moment of pure happiness was incredibly cruel, but brilliantly so. It made the impending fall hurt so much more. When that phone rang with the news from the hospital, the shift in the atmosphere was palpable. I loved the way the camera lingered on Deacon's face, as the realization washed over him. The joy literally drained from his eyes, replaced instantly by a horror that I felt deep in my own bones. In my opinion, this is where the storyline transitions from a dramatic romance into a profound psychological thriller. The happiness they fought so hard for, the love they risked everything to claim, was instantly tainted with the metallic taste of guilt and blood. I want to spend a significant amount of time talking about Taylor Hayes in this scenario, because I feel like the writers are giving her the most complex, fascinating material she has had in a decade. Taylor is not just a woman who lost her new boyfriend, she is a world-renowned psychiatrist. She is a healer. And yet, she is now standing in the wreckage of a tragedy that she feels entirely responsible for. When they rushed to the hospital, the way Taylor began to psychologically torture herself was so incredibly compelling to watch. I think her internal monologue, the way she was agonizing over whether her presence was the fatal blow that pushed Sheila to self-destruction, is the most authentic reaction a character like hers could have. The way I see it, Taylor's entire identity is built on saving people, on analyzing their traumas, and helping them find the light. But here, she is forced to confront the terrifying possibility that she is the trauma. She is the catalyst for a woman's complete destruction. I genuinely believe that Taylor's guilt is the emotional anchor of this entire arc. I love the specific moments where she was pacing the hospital floor, her hands shaking, her voice breaking as she questioned her own morality. Did I do this? Did my love for this man almost kill someone? I think it is so rare for a soap opera to allow a heroine to sit in that level of profound, messy, ugly guilt without immediately absolving her. The writers are making Taylor face the consequences of her affair with a married man, and even though Sheila is a villain, Taylor's empathy will not allow her to just brush off the fact that a human being is fighting for their life because of a broken heart. I feel so incredibly validated by this writing because it respects Taylor's profession and her core character traits. And then we have Deacon. Oh, Deacon Sharp. I feel like this is the definitive Deacon storyline. Standing silently outside that emergency room, the weight of the world crushing his shoulders, Deacon was a portrait of absolute devastation. I think the specific choice to have him be silent, rather than screaming or crying hysterically, was brilliant. He was paralyzed by the consequences of his own actions. I interpret his silence as a man whose soul is being torn in two. On one hand, he loves Taylor. He truly, deeply loves her, and I will defend their chemistry to the end of the earth. But on the other hand, he made a vow to Sheila. He was the one person who saw the good in her, the one person who promised he would never abandon her, and the moment he did, she nearly died. I believe that as Deacon stood outside those ER doors, he was asking himself the most impossible question. Is this new love worth a human life? I think we, as the audience, are meant to feel his agonizing paralysis. I know some fans are frustrated, saying Deacon should just wash his hands of Sheila because she's crazy and she brought this on herself. But I genuinely think we're missing the point if we view it that way. Deacon's entire redemption arc has been about proving he is a good man, a loyal man. If he were to just walk away while Sheila is bleeding out on an operating table, he would be proving every single one of his detractors right. He would be the selfish, careless loser the Forresters always claimed he was. I feel like the writers are forcing Deacon to choose between his own happiness and his fundamental humanity, and it is absolutely riveting television. And then comes the twist. The moment that literally made me gasp out loud in my living room. Sheila finally wakes up. The monitors are beeping, the tension is suffocating. Deacon leans in, desperate for a sign of life, a sign of forgiveness, or even a sign of Sheila's trademark rage. But instead, nothing. Complete, absolute amnesia. I know. I can already hear the collective groans from the fandom. Amnesia? Really? How cliché. But I am here to fiercely defend this creative choice. I know a lot of people are saying this amnesia storyline is dragging, or that it's a lazy trope, but I actually think the slow burn and the memory loss is exactly what's needed, because I feel like it completely reinvents the dynamic of every single character involved. Think about it. Sheila Carter, the woman whose entire existence is defined by her grudges, her history, her obsessive memories of who wronged her, has lost her memory. She is a blank slate. I love the way the actress played that awakening scene. The total emptiness in her eyes when she looked at Deacon. She didn't look at him with love or with the furious betrayal of a discarded wife. She just looked at him with innocent, terrified confusion. Who are you? I think that specific line delivery was chilling. In my opinion, giving Sheila amnesia is the most brilliant way to trap Deacon. If Sheila woke up screaming and threatening Taylor, Deacon could easily justify walking away. He could say, "You're still a monster, I'm done." But by having her wake up vulnerable, innocent, and completely dependent on him, the writers have essentially shackled Deacon to her with chains of pure guilt. He cannot abandon a woman who doesn't even know her own name, let alone the terrible things she's done. I feel like this is a masterstroke of psychological manipulation by the writers, and I am eating up every single second of it. This brings me to the absolute climax of my emotional breakdown over these episodes: Deacon's decision to break up with Taylor. I am still crying over this scene. I feel like this is one of the most beautifully tragic breakups the show has ever done. Deacon, tormented by a guilt so profound it is practically suffocating him, realizes that he cannot build a future with Taylor on the grave of Sheila's mind and body. He has to take responsibility. The breakup scene was a masterclass in suppressed agony. I love the way the director framed them, standing just a little too far apart, the physical distance mirroring the massive, insurmountable wall of guilt that had suddenly erected itself between them. When Deacon told Taylor that he had to stay and care for Sheila, I didn't see a man who was out of love. I saw a man who was punishing himself. I think Deacon feels that caring for this broken, amnesiac version of Sheila is his penance. He broke her, so he has to fix her. And Taylor's reaction? Absolutely devastating. Because the worst part is, Taylor understands. As a psychiatrist, she knows the fragility of the human mind. As an empathetic woman, she feels the same crushing guilt that Deacon does. I think the tragedy of their breakup isn't that they don't love each other. It's that they love each other so much, but they are both too inherently good to ignore the bleeding woman at their feet. I know fans of Taylor and Deacon are furious right now. They feel robbed of a happy ending. But I genuinely believe that this heartbreak makes their love story so much more epic. It's not just a fling anymore. It's a profound, sacrificial love. He had to let her go to save his own soul. The way I interpret it, Deacon is sacrificing his own light to sit in the dark with the monster he created, and there is something so dark and beautifully poetic about that. Finally, I have to talk about Steffi. Steffi Forrester comforting her mother at the Cliff House was the grounding emotional anchor we needed after the storm of the hospital scenes. I feel like the dynamic between Steffi and Taylor is always at its best when they are fiercely protecting one another. When Taylor broke down, confessing that Deacon had left her to care for Sheila, Steffi's reaction was everything I wanted it to be. I loved the fire in Steffi's eyes. I think Steffi's perspective here is so crucial because she represents the audience's protective instinct over Taylor. Steffi firmly believes that Taylor deserves a better man, a man who doesn't come with the toxic, lethal baggage of someone like Sheila Carter. And the way I see it, Steffi is absolutely right. From a logical standpoint, Taylor does deserve better. She deserves peace. She deserves a man who puts her first without hesitation. When Steffi wrapped her arms around her mother and told her that Deacon's choice, while painful, was ultimately a blessing in disguise, I felt a profound sense of relief. But at the same time, I think the writers are playing a brilliant dual narrative here. Steffi is right logically, but Taylor's heart doesn't care about logic. I believe that Steffi's comforting words, while meant to heal, only highlight the deep, agonizing chasm of loss Taylor is feeling. The specific way Taylor leaned into Steffi, looking so incredibly fragile, broke my heart all over again. I feel like this entire sequence of events, the divorce, the horrific crash, the amnesia, the breakup, and the maternal filial comfort, is a perfect, closed-loop symphony of soap opera storytelling. I am just so deeply invested in where this goes next. Will Sheila's memories slowly bleed back in, turning her into a sleeper agent of revenge? Will Deacon's guilt eventually morph into resentment? Will Taylor be able to move on, or will she be forever haunted by the love she had to surrender to a tragedy? I don't know the answers, but I do know that I am fiercely loyal to this narrative right now. The writers have taken characters with decades of history and managed to find a brand new, emotionally devastating angle to explore. I genuinely think that if you aren't feeling the power of this storyline, you aren't looking close enough at the brilliant, subtle, heartbreaking work these actors are doing. I am completely in awe, and I will be defending this era of the show for years to come.